1,000 PhD students in Atlanta, Georgia are holding a rally to celebrate the filing of their union election and to prep coworkers for what's next.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So let's talk about what happened in the U.S. South in the labor movement last week. We had several new election filings. First up, 1,722 PhD students providing instructional and research services at the private Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, filed for a union election with Workers United. They are also holding a rally on Monday, August 28th, from 10 to 11 a.m. on the Quad outside the administration building to celebrate the filing of their union election and to prep their coworkers for what's next. So that's very exciting. A huge unit, and in the South. In what appears to be a raid of a unit of employees currently represented by the Office of Professional Employees International Union, OPEIU, 45 workers at Transdev in Lorton, Virginia filed for a union election with the Independent Supervisors Union.
You might have to ask Chris about that later. He might have some insight.
That's true. 9 workers at Allegiance Crane and Equipment in Beaumont, Texas filed for a union election with the International Union of Operating Engineers. 10 workers at Crescent Hotels and Resorts in Washington, D.C. filed for a union election with Unite Here, Local 25. 5 workers at Trident Military Services doing work on flight simulation projects at Lackland Air Force Base, Texas, filed for a union election with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. 33 security guards at Allied Universal Security Services in Washington, D.C. filed for a union election with the Fraternity of American Protective Officers. 7 workers at Mid-America Conversion Services, LLC in Keville, Kentucky filed to be included in the existing bargaining unit that is represented by the United Steelworkers. 95 workers at Cisco in Louisville, Kentucky filed for a union election with the General Drivers, Warehousemen, and Helpers, local union number 89, which is an affiliate of the Teamsters. 13 workers at PSA doing clerical work in Norfolk, Virginia filed for a union election with the Teamsters local 822. 50 workers for Ocean Point Terminal in Christiansted, in the Virgin Islands filed for a union election with the United Steelworkers Local 8526. 300 workers at Coca-Cola Southwest Beverages in Fort Worth, Texas filed for a union election with the Teamsters Local 997. 7 workers at T47 International in Abilene, Texas filed for a union election with the Laborers International Union of North America Local 154. There were also a few election petition withdrawals at Blue Crew in New Orleans, Louisiana, Novo Health Services in Atlanta, Georgia, Bourbon Dog Inc. in Burlington, North Carolina, Route 66 in St. Louis, Missouri, Trident Military Systems in San Antonio, Texas, Hospital Damas in Ponce, Puerto Rico, and Hand and Stone Massage in Gainesville, Florida. Workers at all of those locations pulled their petition for a union election. Workers who were able to have their election last week almost ran a clean slate. There was one election loss, but every single other one was a win. That's very cool. 23 workers at a Starbucks in Washington, D.C. voted in favor of unionization, 13-9 with Starbucks Workers United. 83 workers at PepsiCo in Houston, Texas voted in favor of unionization with the Teamsters Local 988. 52-25. 20 workers at Championship Enterprises in Fort Hood, Texas voted against unionization with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers 8-12. 13 workers at Gladius in San Juan, Puerto Rico voted unanimously in favor of unionization with the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees Local 839. 8 workers at Brass Tacks Coffee in Jacksonville, Florida voted in favor of unionization with Teamsters Local 947 6-2. And finally, 17 workers at Swissport Fueling in Fort Myers, Florida voted in favor of unionization with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers 16-1. Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. There's a lot of strikes and bargaining updates this week. A committee of the State Employee Insurance Board in Alabama last week proposed a combination of increases in state employees' health care premiums and a decrease in benefits.
Yikes.
Love that. That's super great because everybody knows that Alabama state employees are just raking it in. That's what I'm told. Obviously not true. UAW members at the big three automakers have authorized a strike by a whopping 97%. The contracts expire at the big three automakers on the 14th of September, and the UAW has said that is a deadline, not a reference point. Teamsters at UPS overwhelmingly ratified their tentative agreement with UPS. More people voted in the referendum than have ever voted in a UPS contract referendum, and the percentage in favor was higher than ever in a UPS contract referendum. So genuinely overwhelming support from Teamsters at UPS. Teamsters at UPS will immediately get a raise of at least $2.75 an hour, a minimum wage of $21 an hour, and full-time package car drivers will see their wage rise to $49 an hour by 2028, and they will additionally not be able to be forced by management to work a sixth day in a week. The collective bargaining agreement between members of the Communication Workers of America in West Virginia and Ashburn, Virginia, and their employer, Frontier Communications, expired on at 11:59 p.m. on August the 19th, but the 1,400 members of the Communication Workers of America have agreed to continue to report to work and maintain the status quo as they continue negotiations on a new agreement. Workers have authorized the bargaining committee to call a strike if necessary. In politics and legislation, longtime listeners of the show will remember our discussions about the resurrection of the Joy Silk Doctrine at the National Labor Relations Board, and last week we saw something quite close to it and something that will, in practice, be, I think, almost identical. In a decision on the CMEX case, the National Labor Relations Board put forward a new standard for certification of union representation. Going forward, the board has stated that if an employer commits any unfair labor practices over the course of a union election, and workers had already shown that a majority of employees support a union through union authorization cards, then the employee will automatically certify the union and order the employer to bargain.
Wow.
So that is huge news and is going to be a huge disincentive on employers with respect to their lawlessness during union elections. The new CMEX standard, however, is not the only change in union election procedures that the NLRB put forward last week. A new rule was issued aimed at expediting union elections to decrease the time available to employers to interfere with their workers' rights to organize. Changes include allowing pre-election hearings to begin more quickly, ensuring that important election information is disseminated to employees more quickly, making pre- and post-election hearings more efficient, and ensuring that elections are held more quickly. So two very big pieces of news coming out from the board this week that will both be very helpful to employees who are seeking to form a union. The American Federation of Government Employees has endorsed Joe Biden's nominee to head up the Social Security Administration, Martin O'Malley. Now, there's a name that I have not heard in a long time.
Interesting. Throwback.
Yes. Last week's guest, Rich Kuchar, who is president of the American Federation of Government Employees Council 215, which represents part of their members at the Social Security Administration, said in a statement, quote, SSA deserves a leader with full authority to implement a positive vision that will simultaneously improve public service and employee working conditions. Governor O'Malley is that leader. So here's hoping that Brother Kuchar is right. From the American Prospect, over the past 2 years, Georgia has been the beneficiary of 22 clean energy projects and almost 17,000 clean tech jobs, which is the second highest totals for both of any state in the country. There's only one other state that has more clean energy projects and more jobs from the federal subsidies in the clean energy industry. Governor Kemp's administration secured economic development deals with these companies that award lucrative contracts for building out the factories to non-union construction firms. The selected companies are also donors to Republicans in the state, including the governor, who is himself the former owner of a non-union construction firm. No union contractor has benefited from any of these federally subsidized projects, despite Biden's assurances that these subsidies would fund good-paying union jobs. So that's a big, big issue there. We're going to be diving into that a little bit more deeply in the coming weeks, but you should really check out the article in The American Prospect from Luke Goldstein, I believe is his name. If we missed anything, then let us know. Send us a message at tvlr.fm/contact about your Southern labor updates, and we will be sure to include it in the next segment. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.